So let's look a little closer at this, at gas exchange with plants. So we're right down at the leaf. We've got a leaf here, and we can see as we zoom in, we've got the stoma, or the opening. Here are the guard cells, so they must be full of water to have this opening open. CO2 gas needs to come in, and it's going to, of course, go to the palisade cells. Water is already here. It's come through the xylem. So the water is already here, again, comes to the palisade cells. So those two get together, are combined. So those are the reactants, and we're going to get the products, right, of photosynthesis. Of course, each and every one of these palisade cells, all of the chloroplasts that we see here are going to be doing this reaction literally millions and millions of times. But ultimately, that reaction ends up releasing O2 gas. So we've got O2 gas coming out. So it really is that simple, if you like. CO2 gas goes in, O2 gas comes out. And it happens over and over and over. And it is because of photosynthesis. And this is how a plant breathes. And it's opposite to us, isn't it? Because we breathe in O2 gas versus a plant, it breathes in CO2. And of course, we breathe out CO2. So that's pretty interesting. Okay, let's continue.
iScience 10. So in this video, we're going to be looking at gas exchange in plants, but also we'll be talking about gas exchange in animals as well, because the gas, specifically that plants release oxygen, we take it in. And of course, right now, I just breathed out some carbon dioxide, and the plant will take that in itself. But let's look at that. Let's start by looking at photosynthesis. All right, so looking at the reaction of photosynthesis, the plants down here are definitely doing this reaction. They're taking in CO2 gas, water from their roots, combining it in the palisade cells to create glucose, sugar, and of course oxygen. So now specifically, let's zoom in on a leaf. I've got a lettuce leaf here, and of course we're familiar with those. So what's happening at the stomata, which of course, we can't see, but we know that there's tiny, tiny pores, tiny, tiny holes, and as long as the guard cell has enough water, the guard cell will swell, the stomata will be open, CO2 gas goes into the leaf, okay? And then of course the process of photosynthesis happens, and the leaf will produce, the palisade cell specifically will produce glucose and oxygen, so oxygen will be released. So ultimately the way you want to think about this is that CO2 goes in to the leaf, and there it goes in, and oxygen comes out. And what you want to definitely say is thank you, plant, because not only does that plant make the oxygen for us, but it also, of course, makes glucose. And it's not just us, it's every animal on Earth is eating that glucose. Now, the neat thing, too, about this glucose is the plant definitely uses it. I mean, think about how it gets water up from the roots, right? This plant, or any of these plants here, they've got to get water into the roots. One of the ways is by using active transport to get minerals, certain salts, into the roots. Remember how salts and certain minerals act like a sponge for water, and they suck the water into the root. Well, the only way that those minerals got into the root is through active transport. The only way to get active transport is we've got to burn glucose to recharge ATP. We need ATP. Now, what we're doing is called cellular respiration. Plants do this as well, cellular respiration. And take a look at what cellular respiration is. So I'll just put the equation back together here. So this is, of course, photosynthesis right here, CO2, the two reactants, and then you get two products, glucose and oxygen. Well, cellular respiration, we flip this around, and we take glucose and combine it with oxygen, and we burn those, and we release CO2 and H2O. And then, of course, this CO2 gets absorbed by a plant, and then the plant does the reaction in the other direction. You could just literally take this arrow and flip it that way. There's photosynthesis. Flip it this way. There's cellular respiration. Let's just take a look at how the mitochondria actually does this reaction really quickly, the reaction of cellular respiration.
So as we're just discussing here, plants do indeed do photosynthesis. One of the key products of photosynthesis is oxygen. Now, oxygen is critical for us, and especially for exercising, to take in, because we use oxygen in a process called cellular respiration. Here's cellular respiration right here. So we take glucose, combine it with oxygen, and burn it, done by the mitochondria in our cells, right? So this would be one of trillions of cells in this person's muscles, burning glucose with oxygen, releasing CO2 gas. So this individual would be breathing out CO2 gas. They would take in oxygen, breathe out CO2, and of course get a little excess water in that reaction. Again, reactions have reactants and then products. Those are the two products of cellular respiration. But the other key thing that happens is ATP. There's energy released and ATP is recharged. ATP is what your muscle cells and actually all of your cells use for as an energy source. It's a very high energy molecule, and specifically our muscles use it to contract. So literally you can see these muscle contractions happening here. The only way that happens is with ATP. And if you run really, really fast up a hill, you'll have to stop, because literally your muscles run out of ATP, and then you have to stop, and you're breathing really hard. You're taking in lots of oxygen, burning lots of glucose, and eventually you get back to feeling normal. So yeah, so this is what happens with cellular respiration inside the mitochondria. Of course, today what we're talking about is how plants take in CO2 into the leaf and then release O2 gas from the leaf. Okay.
Okay, so that's our video. Okay, so that's our video on gas exchange in plants. Ultimately, CO2 goes into the leaf and O2 gas comes out. Take care. Have a good day, Science 10.